so hello and welcome everyone. My name is Rebecca King and I'm one of the brain changers from Moonbeam Monday Training and Coaching. So I just want to thank you for joining us live here today. It's always great to have a live audience. And today we're going to be talking about how to release negative triggers and create positive anchors. And I'm just going to start with a very short introduction of myself for those of you who are new to Moonbeam Monday. So this is just a little bit about me. I am a coach, of course, and I help people eliminate chronic anxiety and take control of their life to get essentially anything that they want and to leave that anxiety behind. And I do that by teaching them how to retrain their brain. I do that using a number of modalities. One of them is NLP or neuro-linguistic programming, and also hypnotherapy. In the middle there, that's me in my spare time. I am a cyclist. I love cycling. It not only keeps me fit and healthy in the body, in the physical sense, but also in mentally as well. So I was hoping to get out this afternoon. We'll see if that happens with this weather. I'm not sure. And then personally further along, that's me. I am a dog mum. They're my two babies, Ruby and Winnie. And as it says there, thanks to them, my favourite colour is dog hair. I can't leave the house without being covered on it or with it. And I'm also, of course, I have this business, Moonbeam Monday Training and Coaching, and I'm in partnership with Yvonne, who you can see on the screen there in the pink. But Yvonne is not just my business partner, she is actually my mum as well. And we started Moonbeam Monday Training and Coaching a couple of years ago. We're actually coming up to our second anniversary. And we did that to help people spark a revolution in their thoughts and their actions, and really to empower people to find their true purpose and enable them to live the life that they choose, free from those constraints of others' expectations. And that's what we've both been doing over the last couple of years for different reasons and in different ways. And we do that through, well, we've done that through learning how to change our mind. And this is our tagline, because when you change your mind, you change your life. So as I said, we've both been doing that for the last couple of years. And that's a big part of why we run these sessions. So what we're going to cover today is identifying negative triggers. We're going to talk about how to create positive anchors, and I'm going to give you a tool today, a very basic tool about how you can create a positive anchor, and then we'll talk about mastering stress resilience. So I want to start first about talking about what stress actually is. Because to be able to identify the events that trigger a stressful or anxious response, we do need to understand what stress and anxiety actually is, because often it's not what we think it is. So when we talk about stress and anxiety, we need to understand that the stress response is cognitive. It's a mental actional process, which of course, being a mental actional process means that we can actually control it, and therefore we can change it. So often I think, we feel like we're in a situation, or there's somebody else creating a situation of stress, but we're actually in control of how we react to that particular situation. And of course, there's a lot of things that produce this mental and emotional stress. It could be situations at work, it could be past trauma, it could be a relationship, issues in a relationship. That's just a few. And stress, of course, is a natural response to dire circumstances in your life. When you're in danger, or even perceived danger, the stress hormones are actually released to boost your energy levels. Now, that was particularly important a long, long time ago, back in caveman times, for example, when we were surrounded by actual danger. So, animals that could kill us, threatening animals, and even other tribes. So it was important that we had this stress response. But today, dangers are very different. So especially for us in Adelaide, we don't live in an area that we're in real danger majority of the time. But our mind and our body are still reacting in the same way. So, for example, I've got a picture up here of a hot stove. So when you touch a hot stove, you move away quickly, don't you? That's your flight we've all heard of fight or flight. So that's our flight sensation coming into play. And once that stressful situation has passed, your body knows how to calm down and maintain balance. It just knows this. That's all part of our nervous system. That's the parasympathetic nervous system, and it restores your body to that calm and composed state. Now, this short-term stress, it protects you from harm, like that burn from the stove. But when stress is left unregulated, your body suffers. And it's different for everyone. But I added in a statistic here because I found this quite incredible. Now, this is based on the American Institute of Stress. 77% of people experience stress that affects their physical health. So this is US people. So 77%, that's over 200 million people. And then 73% have stress that impacts their mental health. So again, there's not much between that. So around 200 million Americans experience stress that affects their physical or mental health. I just find those numbers quite alarming. So to describe the changes in the body when a person undergoes stress, I wanted to go through that with you. And this is from a medical doctor and researcher, Dr. Hans Selye, who came up with the concept of general adaptation syndrome, or to shorten it, GAS. And I want to take you through this. So there's 3 stages here, and have a listen to them. You might be able to resonate with one or more of these. So first of all, there's the alarm reaction stage. Now, this is what I was talking about before. This stage prepares you for either fight or flight from a dangerous situation. So your adrenal glands activate and you get this surge of hormones that's released. And what you might feel is an increase in heart rate, like a sudden increase in heart rate, when your heart starts beating really fast, and you get this energy because you're ready to run away. So that's that first alarm reaction stage that we're all familiar with. The next one, though, is resistance stage. So some stressful situations continue for an extended period of time. It could be a work situation, it could be family situation. And your body actually learns how to adapt to the stress. So you may think that you're doing okay, that you're managing the stress quite well, but your body has adapted to a new level of stress. And your body starts to feel otherwise. So you can experience things like irritability, frustration, and even poor concentration during this stage, and a host of other things. Then there's exhaustion stage. Now, we've all heard of burnout. Exhaustion stage is burnout. So at this stage, you already feel burnt out. You might even feel depressed or anxious. So you've no longer got the strength to fight the stress. And you can feel like your situation is hopeless. So these are the 3 stages that Dr. Selye talks about with his general adaptation system. And then there's the way that react. So there's reasons behind the way that you react. So there's several factors that determine how you react to stresses. So you've got your sensory input. Now, those of you who have watched our Mindshift Mastery will be a little bit familiar with this, but you've got your 5 main senses, and they're responsible for detecting danger, and they start a series of reactions. So when you feel unsafe, your body produces more energy, like I mentioned before, and that's so that you're ready to take action and seek safety. So, I experience this on a regular basis. I take my dogs for a walk and we're having a nice peaceful walk, and all of a sudden we get to a gate and another dog launches itself at the gate and it barks incessantly, and it scares me. My heart rate increases and I get ready to move away from this dog because I'm sensing danger. So that's my sensory input. Then there's genetics. So genes do have a role in controlling your stress responses. And this can explain why some people are more sensitive to stress. But then we've got our life experiences and memories. And again, we talk about this a lot when we talk about the filters of the mind, which I'll mention again shortly. Stored memories help you remember how you reacted the first time you faced a similar situation. So because our unconscious mind remembers every event that we've ever experienced, and I mean that every event, you don't consciously remember it, but they're all stored in your unconscious mind, every single one of them, and it's been hanging on to them. So let me give you an example. Perhaps your relationship broke down and you felt rejected. So now when you perceive a situation where there's potential for rejection, you become stressed or anxious. And the behaviors, the beliefs, memories, and perceptions that build up your identity eventually become part of your unconscious mind. And these are all stored in our body as negative emotions as well. So the unconscious mind represses our negative emotions, but they're still in our body. And this affects the energy flow through our body, and it can actually create illness or disease, whether mild or chronic. And we don't learn these things at school, do we? We don't learn about stress and how it affects us. We don't learn about anxiety and what it can do and how to handle it. We learn a lot of interesting things at school, but we do not learn how our mind works and how to change it. And that's concerning, because if you look at this man here, Gerald Zaltman, he's a Harvard professor. He tells us that 95%, and it's at least 95%, some now actually think 98%, but 95% of thought, emotion, and learning occur in the unconscious mind. And what that means is that it's without our awareness. So this explains why changing something about yourself is not necessarily easy. So once you know how your mind works, it can be very simple. You can understand it, but it's not always easy because we're working with our unconscious mind as well. And you find it hard to cope when you're unaware of how your body responds to stress and what your emotions mean. So this is just a little snapshot I mentioned before, the filters of the mind. So just a reminder on this for those of you who are familiar with it, but every time we experience an event, 2 million bits of information per second come pouring into our brain. So that's through all of our senses. So what we see, hear, taste, smell, feel, all of that comes pouring into our brain. And our brain cannot handle all of this information at once. We'd be in complete sensory overload if it didn't help us out. And so what it does is it filters all of this information, and you can see those filters there: language, attitudes, memories, etc. So it filters all of this information based on these filters that we've created from past events, and it spits out a result, and that creates an internal picture for us, or an internal representation. And that in turn creates a state, so an emotional state. We're happy, sad, angry, joyful. And that state creates a physiology. So if the state is scared, for example, we might try and protect ourselves. And then that creates a behavior. So how we respond or how we react to the situation. So if it's joy or happy, we might burst out laughing. So that's just a very quick run through about those filters of the mind. And it's important because we're going to be talking about state in a moment. But it's just our perception of the event based on what we've experienced in the past. It's our reality. Okay, it's not everyone's reality. Perceptions are not real. As you can see in this picture, was it a capsicum looking in the mirror sees a very thin chili? He sees something very different. Perceptions aren't real. They're the way in which something is regarded, understood, or interpreted. So what you perceive as being stressful may not be stressful to me. or to somebody else. You know, what you perceive to be scary might not be scary to me. Who here likes roller coasters? Yep. No, we got some. Yes, I'm with you, Sam. I love roller coasters. I don't find roller coasters scary. I mean,
I enjoy being scared to death.
Yeah, awesome. Exactly. It's like it gets your adrenaline going, right? It's really,
yeah,
it gets something going. I find that as well. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of scared there, but it's not a stressful scared for me.
Yeah.
And I imagine you're the same, Sam. But for some,
yeah,
there's no way they're getting on a roller coaster. It scares the pants off them, and they're not going to do anything like that. So our perceptions are very, very different. And the experience of stress is very subjective. And it's important to understand that our response to the stressor will depend on what we perceive our ability to respond to the stressor is. So if something happens and we think everything's cool, then we'll cope. If we believe that we can cope, we'll cope. But if we don't think we can cope, then that's going to magnify our response to the stress. And the way that we respond to things is influenced by our personality traits, it's influenced by our past experiences and our perceived ability to deal with it. And a big influence on the way that we feel is our language. And in fact, this is fundamental. Master your language and you can master stress and anxiety. And this is the language that we use both internally and externally. And it's likely to be one of your biggest triggers. So we talked at the beginning that we were going to talk about triggers. Your language can be one of your biggest triggers. So let me give you an example. When you say something like, I'm so stressed right now, or I can't handle this, I want you to stop and ask yourself, what is the actual thing that's causing you to feel stressed right now? So it's about chunking down. Now, when I talk about chunking down, it's about being specific. Okay, so when we generalize and we say, or we see everything as causing stress, like I've got on the screen there, life is so stressful right now. Everything's so stressful. I want you to stop and say, well, is every single thing in my life stressful right now? Now, there might be more than one thing. There might be a couple of things, but name them. And also be aware that it's not everything in your life because you're magnifying that. And when you do actually identify what it is that is stressing you, what would happen if you removed one of those things or you stopped doing one of those things? You know, would life be less stressful? And if the answer is yes, what can you do to make that happen? Yes, Sam.
Sorry, are we allowed to interrupt?
Yes, please do.
What about if removing one of those things adds to the stress?
Oh, good question.
Because you know that you've got your list of to-do things and then you do them, and then your suggestion, like in my head, I'm thinking, what if I remove it? But in my head, if I removed it, then I would become more stressful because there's a reason it's on my to-do list.
Yeah. So that there is an important part of that. If there's a reason that it's on the to-do list, you know, do you know actually what the reason is and what it's going to bring you, what the outcome is? And then what is it about that thing that's actually causing you stress?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, chunking down, being specific. So there's like, I love that you brought up the to-do list because we've all got one of these to-do lists that just seems to grow and grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a reason that it's on the list as well. So, you know, if taking it off the list is going to cause stress, then that tells me there's a reason that's on there. So what is it about that you're not doing? Why aren't you doing? Why is it still on there? Is it going to cause you more stress to take it off, or is it going to cause you more stress to leave it on?
Yeah. Sometimes if I run out of time, I create tomorrow's to-do list and I move it over, and then it's not in my head because I'm not on today's to-do list.
That's right. And I mean, there's a school of thought that would suggest that a to-do list is actually not the best thing to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There needs to be a reason why it's on your list. And we could probably do a whole other webinar on to-do lists, actually. Let's put that on the list to do.
Do it. I love it. I love a good list.
Yeah.
Can I just add something here? It may not be the actual chore that is causing us the stress. It might be something connected with that chore. I'll just take an example here. Let's say we've got a Christmas dinner coming up and we're catering for the whole family. That might not be something that causes us any great drama at all, but there might be a member of the family coming that we're unsure how they're going to interact with everybody else. It might be that component that's causing us to stress out about the whole event. So sometimes we have to really try and analyze the situation and say, is there something about this thing? We might have to make a presentation at work and we're really capable of putting all the information together, but it might be standing up in front of our boss to talk that might be causing us the stress. So knowing what part of that chore is the stressor, and I'm sure Beck's going to get into that further about what the triggers are.
And that's a fantastic example. And here's another one for you that's very similar. Along the same lines with work, for example, I every morning I wake up feeling stressed. I don't want to go to work. Well, it could be any number of things, but here's an example that I know from years ago. I used to work in what's now the RAA building. You know, it used to be the Westpac building in the city. Now, I knew somebody who worked up there with me for the 29th on the 29th floor. And there was that feeling of, I don't want to go to work. I'm really stressed about going to work. But what it actually was this person was afraid of heights. And going to work every day and getting into that lift and going up to the 29th floor and having to sit near a window where you could see the whole of Adelaide, that was actually what was causing stress. So it wasn't that this person didn't like their job, that they had an issue with the job. It was actually the stress that caused them, that was caused by going up in the lift and being on the 29th floor.
Yeah, which is nothing to do with the job.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is why we say be specific. If you find yourself talking about, oh, life is so stressful right now, my work is so stressful right now, I don't like it, I'm worried about Christmas dinner, it's going to be a nightmare. It's about get specific. What is the root cause of this? And this is the kind of thing that we can address in coaching and remove. And in fact, we've actually opened up a super valuable offer with 50% off that can help you with this very thing. And I'm going to tell you about that at the end. Our language is really important when identifying negative triggers, and our response to that trigger is really going to depend on what we perceive our ability to respond to the stressor as well. So now that you know a little bit more about what stress is, you can become more aware of those things that trigger you, and you can begin asking yourself more specific questions to work out what that stressor actually is and begin to release whatever it is, whatever that root cause is. And so that takes us into creating these positive anchors. So what we want to do is learn how to create a positive anchor that we can use anywhere and any time and elicit a relaxed state. Now, I say a relaxed state because we're talking about stress here, stress and anxiety. And for most people, relaxed is the opposite to feeling anxious or stressed. Now, it could be different for you, but for the sake of doing this with a group, that's what I've chosen today. Now, an anchor is all about changing your state, or as you can see on the screen there, it's about mastering state management. Now, we talked about state before in relation to the filters of the mind. So our mind filters all of the information that comes in and it creates a state. So think about this when we're thinking about anchors. Have you ever been in the car and you're listening to the radio and, you know, you're just driving along and a song comes on and immediately your mood changes because it reminds you of that time when you were 19 years old and you were out partying, or, you know, it reminds you of a really good time. Perhaps it was a concert that you went to and it made you happy or excited. Has anybody got a song like that? Yeah, a few nods. Yep, I've got plenty of them. And it just reminds you of a special time. And when you hear that song, it can completely change your state. Now, if you were in a bit of a low mood before then, it can totally uplift you. And really the same is true for a song that reminds you of a not so great time. You know, a sad time in your life. Maybe it reminds you of a loved one who's no longer with you at the moment anymore. Or it could remind you of a breakup or something that wasn't such a great time in your life. You know, it literally changes things. It changes your state and you can move into a melancholy state. That is an example of an anchor. So some people might say it's a trigger, and really trigger and anchor are the same thing. It's just that we've got this negative connotation toward the word trigger, and anchor is a more positive way to think about it. So anchoring is all about mastering your state, and that's your emotional state, how you actually feel on the inside. So how you feel on the inside determines how you behave outside. So if you're confident and you're certain and you're sure on the inside, then that's how you're going to show up on the outside. So why are we triggered and how can we alter it? Well, we can simply create positive triggers or positive anchors and use it in the same way as a negative trigger works. So in the context of behavioural change work, which is what I do, an anchor is a stimulus which triggers a specific physiological or emotional state of behaviour. So it can be any of those things that we've talked about, and it gives us the ability to access those desired feelings at lightning speed. No, it doesn't take minutes or hours. We can do it instantly. And we can utilize this to help us achieve the outcomes that we actually want. And we sometimes create these anchors involuntarily. So kind of just like the song, if we listen to it over and over and over when we're having a great time, that's created an anchor. Or if you think about your favorite teacher at school, their name, that could, you know, if you've got good memories of that, that could be an anchor. Or the smell of a certain food. Or for me, it's the smell of rain or freshly cut grass. These are all anchors that I've involuntarily created. And I can get a whole host of emotions instantly when I smell these things. And you'll have the same thing. And these can empower you or disempower you, or they can motivate or demotivate you. And throughout our lives, we often spend a lot of time reacting unconsciously to the effect of these anchors. And in fact, trauma can actually become an anchor for some people. So I just want to do this little exercise with you. I've got 3 slides here, and I want you to, and you can unmute or you can put it in the chat. I'm sorry, I can't see the chat at the moment, but I'm sure, Yvonne, you can help me out with this. But what thought or feeling or emotion conjures when you look at this image? What kind of emotion comes up or feeling or thought comes up when you look at that?
Frustration, anger.
Yeah.
It says anger.
Yep. Anger. Yep. Anger, frustration. What about, oh, sorry, Sam, you're muted.
Sorry. Do you mean what we think she's doing or how we feel?
How you feel.
When we see that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
frustrated.
Kind of comes up. Yeah. What about this one?
Oh, sad.
Sad.
Sad. Yeah.
Very sad.
Okay. What about this one?
Oh, happy. I love
Yeah.
babies.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah, most people get like, so we've just gone from sad.
And it says sleepless nights.
Yeah. Yes. I don't have babies, I have dogs, but I tell you what, I've just come off a sleepless night with that thunder, so I totally get that. But most of us, whether we have babies or not, we look at this picture and we just think, oh, how cute is that? It's adorable. Whereas a moment ago, we were all feeling a bit sad and frustrated from the other pictures. So you may not have seen any of these pictures before, but as soon as you do, they conjure a feeling, and that will have an impact on you. So I want to do a little exercise with you. So is anyone feeling a little bit stressed at the moment, either today or in general? Christmas is coming up. We've got a lot on that to-do list, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So today I want to help you create an anchor for calm. So what I want you to do is just, first of all, make sure that you're sitting comfortably. I'd like you to have your feet planted firmly on the ground if you can. And if you're comfortable to do so, just close your eyes or at least lower your gaze. And I want you to think about a time when you felt really calm, relaxed, peaceful, like there were no troubles, no stresses. It could be in any context. It could be personal. It could be professional. You know, maybe you're thinking of a time, if you could feel like this all the time, you'd love it. So you might have just had a massage, might have been out for lunch with friends, had the boss compliment you for a job well done. Some point in your life where you just thought it was an amazing time. And I want you to go back to that time, just one time where you had this positive experience, and I want you to go into your body and I want you to feel the feelings of really being in that moment. I want you to clearly picture it. See all the things you could see, hear all the things that you could hear. Maybe it's things that other people are saying to you. Maybe it's things that you're saying to yourself. And I want you to amplify that. Really amplify that. Really feel it. Give your mind instructions to really amplify those feelings of calm, relaxation, peace. And just let it wash over you. And then I want you to take a nice, deep, cleansing breath in and hold it. And release. And just let everything go, feeling nice and calm. And take another deep breath in and hold it and let it out. And just feel that calm wash over you. And I can see some change in energy there. Just slowly come back to the room. Just gently open your eyes when you're ready. I can see some different states happening there. So who feels different to how they felt even just 2 minutes ago? Yeah. Awesome. How quick was that to change your state? So quick. This is how quickly you can change your state, by what you hold in your mind, the feelings that we choose to have, the things that we say to ourselves. You know, we talked about language before. That includes the words, the language that we use in our own head. And we can even do it with our physiology. You know, we can breathing differently. We just took 2 deep breaths there. It's very, very powerful breathing. I know we're all breathing right now. Of course, we do it all the time without even thinking about it. But when we breathe intentionally, it moves energy. It raises your state. And from this state, you'll be a lot calmer and a lot more relaxed. So it's easier to do all of the things, to be kinder, to see things in perspective. You'll be more resourceful. And there's actually no unresourceful people. There's only unresourceful states. And when you change your state and you get yourself into that positive and calm state by doing that, you're going to become more resourceful. So that to-do list that we've all talked about, we'll start ticking things off. And I use this. When I'm coaching people, we go into a lot more detail with setting anchors, and you can do it for any state that you want. You know, we could set an anchor for confidence or energy or basically any state that you want, happy. And so I use this, you know, before I do a talk like this, or before I go on stage to present, before I go into a workshop, I'll use this anchor, this calm anchor. And I don't do it because I have anxiety. I used to have anxiety. And those of you who know my story, you perhaps know that. I used to have chronic anxiety. I do not identify as having anxiety anymore. I've eliminated it. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't feel anxious or stressed in certain situations that warrant that. But when I do feel like that, I now have this as one of my tools. So I could be driving along in traffic, and I don't actually drive a lot these days because I work from home. So when I find myself in traffic, I do find that it stresses me a little bit. I can use this technique in my car, and I can instantly bring that calm and relaxed, resourceful state. And so if you want to do this, or if you do this on a daily basis, you can condition yourself to become, to be in a more resourceful state, in a calmer state. Now, we've all been conditioned to think, say, and do all sorts of things in our life. And this is something you can condition yourself to do. So do this on a regular basis, and you're going to begin to feel calmer on a regular basis. Yes, Sam?
When you say do this, you mean do what we just did? Like just, because I did a retreat recently and we got taught how to meditate, and that was very similar.
Yeah. There's lots of different things that you can do. Meditation is one of those things that is great for learning how to manage your state, for learning how to be calmer, and for changing your nervous system. And I'm going to give you a very, very quick lesson on the nervous system in a moment, which will explain it a bit more. So yeah, meditation, breath work, journaling, all of these things that we talk about, they all have a part to play in learning how to master our state. And when we do these things on a regular basis, they're not things to do once in a while. You know, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I'm no good at meditating. I can't clear my mind. I might say, okay, how often do you meditate? Oh, I tried it a couple of times and it didn't work for me. Well, have you ever tried to play the piano a couple of times? Did you call yourself a pianist after that? It takes practice. Meditation, breath work, all of these things, they take practice, and we need to do them consistently for them to start having an impact on us. So that is one of the tools that you've now got in your toolkit, a very quick, taking yourself into that moment. And it carries on from last week. If you watched last fortnight's Lunch and Learn on how to hardwire happiness, it's essentially the same thing. You're remembering that positive, happy, calm moment and reliving it in your mind and your body and installing it. So it becomes, it's like you create a new neural pathway in your brain. And the more often you do that, the calmer you become, or the happier you become, or the more positive you become. Okay, so it's flicking that switch. And so breathing, if we talk about breathing again, it sounds really, really simple, and it is. It is a practice that goes back centuries. Personally, I'm a big fan of remedies like this because they work. They're tried and they're true. But somewhere along the line, we've complicated things. So I just want to give you a very, very quick overview, as I said, of the nervous system to share with you why this works, because we're not just about telling you what to do. It's important for us that we tell you why it works and then how to do it as well. Because anyone can just tell you what to do. But if you don't understand what the purpose is, then it's likely that you're not going to do it. So our nervous system, it controls practically everything in our body, and it can be broken down into several parts. I'm going to focus on this part here. So we've got our peripheral nervous system, and we can put that into two columns as well. We've got our sympathetic nervous system. Now, this is where most people live, right? This is actually our fight or flight system. So, we can, if we're living here on a regular basis, we can feel nervous, we can get that tight chest. We find that we breathe up here in our chest. And if we stay in this state in our sympathetic nervous system for a prolonged period, it's not healthy. When we engage our parasympathetic nervous system, this is actually our natural healing system. It's referred to as the rest and digest system. So it can take us from those protection vibes that we get in the sympathetic nervous system and take us into those relaxation vibes. So breath work is one very, very simple tool that can help you switch between states. So literally a couple of minutes, a few times a day of breathing, regulated breathing. You've probably all heard of box breathing or just a simple breath in, holding it and letting it out, will engage your parasympathetic nervous system. And the more you do that, the more your body will get used to it and naturally engage your rest and digest system. And that's how you can build more resilience so that you can handle those challenging moments better. And as I mentioned, it really does cog into what we were talking about in the last Lunch and Learn with hardwiring happiness. When we take the time to remember these positive moments and we create these neural pathways, it becomes easier and quicker to move through or to handle a stressful situation. And when you consistently use these tools that we share with you in our webinars, you create that's when you start to create transformation in your life. It doesn't have to be one big thing. It's a series of small things along the way. And it can take time. It does take commitment. As I said, you don't just meditate once or breathe intentionally once and you master it. It takes time. And if you need a little help along the way, we do have this special offer at the moment. I mentioned it earlier and I want to tell you about it. It's the first time that we've done this. So we don't normally offer one-off sessions, but we're offering it because we know that a lot of people are feeling stress right now. This time of year, we all start feeling a little bit, I've just got to get to the end of the year. The cost of living's increasing, interest rates are going up. I know my mortgage is about to skyrocket next month. And everything can be a little bit overwhelming. So we created this one-to-one transformation session. So it's where you spend 2 hours with me and we identify one thing that's creating stress in your life right now. Or maybe it's been causing stress for a long time, but you're finally at the point where you're like, I've had enough. I need to deal with this. So we identify with that one thing and we find out what the root cause is. Because as I said at the very beginning, the stress or the anxiety that you feel, that's a symptom. And what you think is the problem is likely not the real problem. Just like that example that Yvonne gave, the example that you gave, Sam, the example that I gave about the lift going to work. And so then we create a clear strategy to help you move forward as well. So you leave this session feeling lighter, calmer, and you're motivated to move forward with confidence. So it could be anything. It could be, I need more confidence. I want to manage chronic pain. I want to eliminate social anxiety. I've got a fear of flying. It could be any of these things. And as I said, we've never offered this one-off session before, but it could be life-changing for you. And I just wanted to include this is what we heard from someone. Now, called this lady Sally. Her name is not really Sally, and that's not actually her photo, but this is from a real client. And she had a problem of social anxiety. So this was actually starting to affect her work. She wasn't going out to networking events, which is where she needed to be to grow her business. And she said it was a game changer. So she was really struggling with old feelings and reactions that were holding her back. And since coaching, she's experienced a significant shift in these patterns, and she now does things differently. And she doesn't let the past control her choices. So it has been absolutely life-changing for her. And that's why we wanted to create this one-off session. so that you can give it a try if you want to. Now, normally, as I said, we don't normally do the one-off sessions, but if we did, they'd be valued at around the $400 mark. So we're offering them at 50% off to book one session. So it's only $197 now. And for being on this call today, if you book today, by the end of today, then we're going to give you an extra bonus that's actually going to help you anchor a calm, relaxed state for good. So we're going to go into a lot more detail of what we just did before. So if you want to book one of those transformation sessions, you can scan the QR code. Yvonne is going to pop that, or I think has already popped that link in the chat. And or you can go straight to our website. So it is only valid until midnight on Friday. So if you have been thinking about coaching, or if there's something that you want to get off your plate before Christmas, this is the ideal time to do it at a fraction of the cost. So that wraps things up for today. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found this helpful. We look forward to seeing you at our next Lunch and Learn next year. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.